These days, you can stream almost anything on demand, but live sports, that's the biggest draw. And nobody does it bigger than the NFL. In 2024, 80 of the top 100 most watched broadcasts in the US were live sports. And of those 80, 72 of them were from the NFL alone. From the Super Bowl to primetime, the NFL is woven into the cultural fabric of America. And for marketers, it's a masterclass in consumer engagement, using storytelling, community, and cultural moments to build lasting brand equity. So, how do they do it? And how is the NFL bringing this piece of American culture to new markets around the world? Joining me today is Marissa Solis, SVP, Global Brand and Consumer Marketing at the NFL. We're going to chat today about how the NFL builds its global brand through storytelling, cultural moments, and one of my favorite topics, international expansion. Welcome to the show, Marissa.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Lovely to have you here with us. Welcome to Inside Insights. I'm so excited to have you here with us. Could you start by introducing yourself and your role within the NFL?
Yeah, so like you said, Marissa Solis, I lead what's called global brand and consumer marketing. So think about the big global positioning for the league, how we show up, building our brand, both in our games with our broadcast partners, and really just the core of fan development and engagement.
Wow, that's a big job. So
It's a very fun job for sure.
that sounds amazing. So, from your perspective, I wanted to ask what makes the NFL so relevant and dominant today? And how are you using consumer insights and feedback to evolve that experience, both in the US and globally, and continuing to grow engagement with fans year after year?
Yeah, wow, that's a big question. Let's take it in parts. Why is the NFL so relevant and dominant today? I mean, let's start with the game, right? The game itself is so incredibly exciting and unpredictable. This is a league where you start out with 32 teams, all of which have the opportunity to win the Super Bowl at the end of the day. So there's a lot of hope in that for all the fans. And it's so unpredictable. There isn't, one team that stands out and you say, okay, this is the team that's going to win every week. Is unpredictable. I saw a stat the other day. I think of, there were 12 games in the weekend that all ended like within the last minute in terms of scoring, how it changed because it just is very exciting. So the game itself is exciting, which I think calls for relevance. I think the other piece too is when you think about the league and what it stands for and the platform that it is. I think by nature it's very unifying. People want to be united in believing something, right? And it's the hope, the anticipation, the excitement that brings people together, no matter what your background is. In today's times when there's divisive times, I think coming together and cheering for something is awesome. So the platform that represents, I think, makes it very, very relevant. And of course, we're in culture. Who wasn't around to hear when Travis and Taylor got engaged, and it was done in a podcast. And, she talked about her love for the game and, and finding that love through the relationship with Travis. And so what can be more front and center in pop culture than that? And I think that also gives a lot of relevance, right? So whether you are an avid fan that loves every statistic, every number, knows every player, every team, or you're just, a casual fan that got into it because maybe you love Taylor Swift or maybe you liked Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl, it has something for everyone. And I think that's why it's relevant.
So true, so true. And some of the things that you described, everybody coming together, even in times where we might feel divided, kind of as a society, they seem so relevant to U.S. culture. And I'm wondering how some of this parlays or plays out in other countries and cultures because everybody seems to want a little slice of that. American culture, but it's also, like Taylor Swift is a global phenomenon. Like many of the, performers and players are global, they have a global fan base. So I'd love to hear more about how you're thinking about bringing that into new markets and what kinds of differences you might be seeing in certain markets too.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly differences, as we go global. I mean, the biggest difference being we are the sporting platform in the US, right? We are the biggest sporting league, by far. Not so much around the world, right? There are many countries where, gosh, we could be number 10 in terms of following, right? There are other sports that people follow. And so as we think about how do we show up globally, it's going back to those fan truths, what makes the league so appealing, yes, in America, but what could make it so appealing around the world, right? So, again, I think the unpredictability of the game, the excitement, the bringing people together around this ritual of watching the sport is very relevant anywhere you go, right? Now, there's nuances as to how those rituals come about. But the notion of bringing people together to witness this incredible sport is huge. And I think to your point, um, we are so much a part of pop culture, and that culture is global. And so just making sure that we're in the conversation in cultures around the world, I think is gonna be, one of our biggest tasks as we move forward to make sure that the league is just as relevant, everywhere in the world as it is here in the US.
Yes. It's so funny because I happen to be married to an Irishman and lived in Ireland for a while. And my family in Ireland is so interested in American football and they love it because, it has some things in common with rugby.
Yes,
We love to learn about it. And I think in addition to everything you said, there's this element of like curiosity,
for
novelty.
sure.
Yeah, like, what is this? And, they hear about the Super Bowl abroad and they hear about it on the news and they don't really know and have that experience. And so getting that little taste of it always, fills stadiums like in Dublin and it gets them so excited to like experience something new and novel too.
And PSA, our first Dublin game is this weekend.
Yes, yeah,
So very, very exciting to see that game between the Vikings and the Steelers, who have such a kind of this Irish traditional background and the history that goes with that team. I think it's very special and very unique. And to your point, I think it starts with this spark of interest and curiosity, and there is a spectacle to it all that I think brings people to it. But that's just the beginning. There's a lot that we need to do in terms of education, right? People need to understand the game to really get into the game and enjoy the game, and then start really engaging with it more, right? And so that it's not just one game that goes to Dublin, once a year, whenever that is, but that they really start to consume it year round. So that's a lot of work from a marketing perspective to really understand all those nuances, for Irish and everyone around the world and start to really see, okay, how do we get this new fan base to engage with our sport day in and day out, 24/7, not just Super Bowl and not just during the season.
definitely. Well, I will be looking forward to the outcome of that game and hearing what my family in Ireland thought about it. So that's
It's
exciting.
gonna be so much fun.
It is. So, obviously, the Super Bowl is one of the most watched spectacles in the world. As you mentioned, it's also a stage for some of the best advertising each year. Despite that, the NFL consistently stands out in the testing we do here at Zappy of the top performing Super Bowl ads. How does the NFL approach these ads, and what advice would you give to marketers who are looking to make an impact on advertising's biggest stage?
Yes, I think, the Super Bowl ads are a key part of our strategy. When you think about, gosh, just the number of eyeballs that are tuning in, that are going to be watching, it's so important that your message resonates. So, yes, you have to entertain because it is the pinnacle of entertainment. So, if your ad isn't entertaining, you're not going to be in those top spots. But I think it's so important to think about the platform that the Super Bowl is and the kind of message that you want to send out. And for the league, we really look at the critical priorities that we as the NFL, have and what we want and how we want to ensure that that spot and those 30 seconds, 60 seconds, sometimes it's up to 2 minutes that we get in the game really go a long way in terms of telling our message. So as an example, one of our most successful Super Bowl spots in recent years was I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we told the story of Diana Flores and really put it out there in the world that flag football was a priority for the league and that we recognize the contributions of women in the sport. And I think it was the first time that we really had leverage a platform of that size to tell that message. And if you think about it, that was the beginning of this incredible just avalanche of growth for flag football, incredible momentum for women and women in sports. And it's been tremendous. And it was really that strategic decision to leverage the Super Bowl as a platform to begin to tell that message that was key. So, if you ask me what advice to give to advertisers, I mean, this is not just an opportunity to do a funny spot and, compete in the ad meter. It really is an opportunity to have all of these people, paying attention to your message. So whether you're launching a product, whether you are, saying something very important about your brand or a big public announcement, this is the time. This is the time to capitalize.
Yes, we find consistently that a lot of those spots that do really send a compelling message and take a stand for something really do perform well, and they stand out. They're not just there to make you laugh, although we love those too.
Yes, they do.
It's the mix, right? I think it's the mix that people also enjoy of the different types of ads that make that viewing experience fun too. So that's great advice, Marissa. I hope many advertisers will take that advice and learn from the NFL continues to have such top scoring ads with really impactful messages. Some of my favorites, by the way.
Thank you.
So, as we talked about a little bit, the NFL has expanded into international markets like Ireland, but also Brazil and Mexico and Germany, the UK. How do you identify which markets to prioritize, and what insights guide your strategy to create lasting fan loyalty beyond just those event driven spikes?
Yes, I think it's very important as we go into different markets that we're very intentional about our objectives and our strategy. So for us, we've set a pretty ambitious goal. We want to be in the top 3 sports leagues in all the major countries that, we identify and go after. And so in order to do that, we really have to take a look at that market and ensure that our sport is going to succeed. And so there's certain market conditions, right? We want to make sure that there is a potential fan base or addressable fan base that exists. So they don't have to be fans of the NFL today, but there has to be potential for them to be fans of the NFL tomorrow. So many countries where there's a big loyal fan base of sports, right? Whether that's rugby, whether that's soccer, whether that's Formula One, that's an indicator that there is a base that loves sports that we can go after. Clearly, I think you know how important media is, and so ensuring that it is a market where we are able to secure rights so that people can watch our live games and start engaging with the game is very important. To your point, you know, taking one game and playing in the country one day a year isn't gonna build a fan base. You really have to start with people consuming the game, watching the game, understanding the game, and then building everything around it. So, how we pick the markets is making sure that they have, the conditions to grow, the media landscape, certainly our partnership landscape in terms of sponsors and things like that. But from a fan perspective, do they have the kind of population that is likely to engage in sports and culture, and really consume all that the NFL is and
Mm.
in the future?
Yeah, so it's is there a fan base that we can address, but also, can we do that in a repeatable, sustainable way over
Yes.
time to get that steady drumbeat of, interest and that reciprocity between the market and what we're offering in terms of viewing experiences and fan engagement?
Yes. I think, too, when you look at the insights around a particular country or fan base, shared values are important, right? So our sport stands for something. It's not going to change as it goes, from country to country. So making sure that the shared values around, you know, the common watching experience, the bringing and coming together and enjoying something, the competition, all of those things are there. That's going to be important too, right? So if you know that it is a country where the population does engage in that kind of activity, then we know there's a potential for success.
Huh. It makes me wonder, is there any country where that isn't possible? Because I just think it's such a universal idea that people wanna come together with sports, but maybe that's just me being very American with my American hat on.
Yeah, I think, of course, any country. I think sports can be successful in any country, but, there's certain infrastructure that I think lends itself to success, and not every country has that infrastructure fully developed, right? So how we prioritize where we go really is the countries with the best conditions, both from a fan perspective or potential fan, but also the market perspective for us to be able to succeed.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Audience size and, capabilities, yeah, that makes total sense. Wonderful. Well, I know that the NFL invests heavily in community impact initiatives. I'd love to ask you, how do you ensure that these efforts feel authentic and meaningful to fans?
Yeah, the league has for so long been such a part of uplifting communities. And the NFL Foundation actually donates over $500 million a year to organizations all across the US. And it's not a story that we used to tell. I think because, you want this to be part of the community, you want it to be real. This is not some PSA or some advertising initiative. It is something that we feel very strongly about both as a league, clubs, players. So it is truly a broader than just the league. It is a full ecosystem that is behind, community engagement and uplifting of our communities. So when we did start shining the light on these efforts, we wanted to make sure they were real, and people got a sense of what the league does. I think we found out through our insights that, perception of the league, perception of players, perception of clubs actually increases when people know the things that happen off the field, right? It's not just the joy of the game, it's how we transcend the game. And so those stories, as we tell them, are very real. Everyone you see in those spots are either players that are engaged in that particular organization that we're featuring. And every organization we feature is real. We try to use the volunteers from those organizations in our ads so that people see the real people behind, what all of these initiatives do. I think I don't know if you saw this year's Super Bowl spot, which was not a funny entertainment spot. It really was a powerful messaging around mentorship and the importance of mentoring kids. And we featured Big Brothers Big Sisters, we featured Special Olympics, and so all the kids that were in that spot were real kids and beneficiaries of these organizations. And I think you see the power when you do that and you feature the real things that are happening and you just shine the light. That's really how we try to keep it as authentic and real as possible, but still tell the stories, right, that need to be told.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you mentioned because I do remember that spot. I watch every single Super Bowl ad, because of the work that I do at Zappy. And, one of the things that really strikes me about what you just said is that there is also this family element around the Super Bowl, families coming together and like bringing out the fact that these are, big brothers, big sisters, people in the community, children.
Yes.
It is more of a family oriented event. And that's I'm not sure that every sporting event is that way in all parts of the world, but generally, families do come together around these things. Parents and children enjoy these activities together. So it's really interesting how that ties in, as well as the local aspect, because there's always this local in community aspect. And I remember last year at the Super Bowl hearing a lot of the advertisers and the CMOs, at the companies that are my customers saying that, they've embarked on these local partnerships with a lot of these local teams. And, there was, the CEO of Build-A-Bear there talking about,
Yes,
the
yes.
part yeah, and so it's interesting to hear the local plays, but the national and how they all kind of tie together, and then the multi-generational aspect of it too.
Yeah, the local communities are key, right? Because that's where the impact happens, and really, you can't really feel the authenticity until you feel the impact yourself. So when you're seeing your own community, it's so powerful. One of my favorite initiatives that we do at the league is My Cause, My Cleats. So that usually happens around Thanksgiving, and these are our own players. They choose their own causes, and a lot of times is for very, very personal reasons. And then they design their cleats around the cause that they're supporting, and they wear those cleats, during the game and really come out, in support of their cause. And the causes range from, I mean, children's causes, suicide prevention, cancer screening. I mean, there's a range of, causes and services. And again, they're so personal to our players because they either had a family member that went through it or they went through it themselves, or it's a very, very powerful initiative, and really, I think one of my favorites in terms of showcasing what the league really is all about.
Yeah, made up of people with struggles, people with causes, people with families. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to tie all of that together. Wow, that's I'm gonna pay close attention to that, and learn more about it. Sounds fascinating. So, Marissa, looking forward as fan behaviors evolve and new platforms emerge, how's the NFL using consumer data and insights to anticipate trends and adapt its marketing strategy?
Yes, it's very important that, we have database learning, right? And the analytics are right. We are leveraging a lot of our first party data. We are building, a contactable database, so that we understand the fan the best that we can, right? The more personal I think we can make our communication and our activation, the better. Now, with all of the advancements in technology, we're able to create better fan journeys. So we literally can understand, your fan journey versus mine, which may be very different. How you entered, the sport, who your favorite team is or teams, if you have players, how you engage throughout the year, and all of those things. And I think that's what informs then how we can better, engage you throughout the different parts of the year. I also think that's, with our existing fans and the fans we can contact through first party data. I think it's also important to understand and get to know those that aren't fans, right? And really understand, okay, for this pool of people, what is it that motivates them or inspires them? What are their lifestyles like? And where can we plug in, and start to be where they are, right? I think the biggest learning for us is we can't just be the NFL. Yes, we are everywhere, as you said, top 80 of the 100 shows. But not everyone is on linear these days. And consumption habits have changed so much that we really have to understand how those consumption habits are changing and what we can do to be there, right? And be front and center if, a Gen Z, Gen A person is picking up their device, whether that's their mobile device, they're on an app, they're, and we can be somehow not disruptive, but present and present something that is of interest to them. And that is not always easy, right? Even with the game as exciting and amazing as it is, getting the attention of Gen A these days and Gen Z where, their attention span is this big. is tough. And that's why really plugging into culture and understanding the adjacencies that lie in the game, whether that's, fashion, whether that's the players' wives and girlfriends, whether that's, what reality show are they watching and how does it connect? Or creating other kinds of content. And I'm sure you've seen whether it's Netflix Quarterback or, HBO Hard Knocks, or there's just so many the
Dallas
Dallas Cowboys
Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, yeah.
cheerleaders.
That's definitely
No.
drawing more women in as well.
Yeah.
Because when you were talking about the cleats for cause, I was thinking about they do something similar on the cheerleaders for the boots, and it
Yes,
y
they do.
yeah, and it's so interesting because my daughters are actually the ones who got me to watch the game. I was watching the ads for Zappy,
Yes.
but they got me to watch the game because of Taylor Swift and the interest so it's interesting
Yes,
where these polls are coming from, bringing new fans into the sport because I actually enjoyed watching the game too. So, for the first time because I didn't have that growing up.
oh, I love it. But really understanding that journey, is so important. I mean, what gets you to even just engage with the sport? Then what gets you to actually stay watching? What other kind of content would you consume? How can I get you to, purchase a jersey or something from the fan shop? It's just all kind of, interconnected, and data plays a huge role in that, in really digging deep and getting to the insights.
A huge role, and that's where insights teams can really help move that forward and connect the dots on all those different touch points. When you described what you're looking to do, it just made me think, wow, some of these younger generations are channel hopping so quickly that it's
Oh, yeah.
so hard to keep them, engaged and also know where they're moving because 'cause they're moving so fast, from
They
TikTok
are.
to the over here, all over, and it's you have to be more places.
For sure. You have to be everywhere they are, and, it's not easy because you have to also be relevant. It's very easy to turn you off, right? If they're not interested, or if you're not part of their life and their world.
That's right. That's wonderful. So, I have a lightning round now for us.
Oh
So
gosh, okay. Find out.
so in our lightning round segment, I'm going to ask you a few quick hitting customer insights related questions, and you can give me your kind of quick responses back, the first thing that comes to you. So, you ready to
Okay.
go?
Ready to go.
Okay. So, which NFL campaign are you most proud of from the past year?
From the past year, it has to be that somebody spot that I talked about where we really shone the light on youth mentorship. It won a sports Emmy, so we love that spot. Very, very, very impactful.
Love that one too. So, next question. What's the most creative fan activation you've seen tied to the Super Bowl?
Oh my goodness, that's a good one. I would have to say there's been a lot, but I would have to say, we partnered with Nickelodeon, and they do an incredible kind of obstacle course at Super Bowl experience where kids get to go through, all sorts of fun things, football related, and they do get slimed at the end. So it's always fun to see, slime show up at the Super Bowl, right? And it's a good way to capture, again, that young, elusive audience. So Nickelodeon does a great job.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. My kids love slime.
Yes. Who doesn't, right?
Yeah,
Who
who
doesn't?
doesn't? So, what's one small insight that shaped a big campaign?
That is also a good one. Small insight that shaped a big campaign. So, a couple of years ago, we actually had a really, really fun campaign, and it was all around the script. I don't know if you remember it, but it was Keegan Michael Key talking about how we were going to write the script for the 107th season at the NFL. And this came out of a social insight actually around social conversations of people always thinking, "Oh, the NFL season is rigged. Somebody out there in the stratosphere is like, putting everything together and manipulating the games." And it was such part of kind of cultural conversation that we thought, "Hey, why not kind of point fun at ourselves and create this entire spot based on that social insight and that cultural phenomenon that's happening, and it was great. I mean, people loved it, because it was fun. We poked fun at ourselves. We had literally players sitting around a table like a script read. So we had Mahomes, we had, all the people doing the script read of what the season would look like. And of course, we didn't reveal what Super Bowl would bring, right? But in we hinted at, turning the page and seeing like, oh my God, this is what's gonna happen. So it was a really fun spot to kick off the season.
I definitely remember that, and I remember thinking, "They're watching, they're aware, like, they know that they know, they're connected," they're connected and they know that this is a thing, and they're tapping into the fun of it and making it even more relevant, and we talked about it even more. So
Yeah, I think having, looking at the insides with an open mind so that if there's something that maybe is surprising, you don't act offensively, but like you can take that insight and know, hey, if people really are thinking this, let's have fun with it. Again, being vulnerable and poking fun at ourselves really, I think, made that super fun. And I think it made our fans appreciate the league a lot more. So
I love that one. Great example. Which NFL brand activation best demonstrates bridging insights and marketing?
gosh, I mean, I feel like all of our NFL activations do. I think, what we've been able to do with our creator and influence community is incredible, right? Because it really is about giving access to, a creator that can then tell the story of their experience in their own unique words. So, it's marketing on its head. We aren't telling the story. We're kind of giving the story for someone else to tell in their own eyes. And I think it's given a lot of credibility, right? Especially among young people, to have someone they respect and they follow tell the story of their experience with the league. That's been really successful.
That's so true. They trust them, they know them, they're close to them more than they
Yes.
are sometimes to the brand itself, so that makes so much sense. So my last question in this lightning round, what's the secret to keeping fans engaged year-round in a seasonal sport?
Yeah. I mean, I like to say there is no NFL season. There really isn't. Yes, we're only playing games, 18 weeks out of the year. Well, not like 20 with all the playoffs and everything, but the NFL is year round. I mean, after Super Bowl, you're getting ready for combine and to see the next generation of players, then you have the draft. Then in the off season, you're getting ready for, the schedule to be released and who's going to be playing who and I mean, the stories just keep going. So the secret really is it's storytelling and drama. And the drama is all year long. So we just you know, keep it going, keep telling the stories, keep people engaged.
That makes so much sense, and also the seasons we have in the Northern Hemisphere are different from the Southern Hemisphere, so I guess if we say it's winter here, it's summer there, so it's all seasons all over the world.
Oh, for sure.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, Marissa, thank you so much. You've been such a wonderful guest. Loved hearing your insights and learning from you about all the great things that you're doing with the NFL and marketing and insights. That wraps up our episode. So, thank you again to Marissa Solis, SVP Global Brand and Consumer Marketing at NFL, for joining us today. If you'd like to contact Marissa, you can find a link to her LinkedIn profile in our show notes or at insideinsightspod.com, or you can visit her company website at NFL.com. If you haven't subscribed yet and want a regular stream of marketing, research, and insights knowledge in your podcast feed, hit that subscribe button in your podcast app or follow us on YouTube. That's all for today. Thank you so much for joining Inside Insights.